What is going on, world? What's up, YouTube? It's Zero here. Today I'm bringing us a brand new episode of the 8 Below Show. Welcome everyone to 8 Below, the best gaming related show here on YouTube. And I'm really excited about this episode here tonight, guys. We have a ton of stuff to talk about, so let's get into it. So guys, our first topic of the day is going to be talking about Evolve. Remember Evolve, guys? That game in which there had so much hype built around it. And then all of a sudden it comes out and there were presented a lot of problems, let's put it that way, throughout the course of the lifespan of this game. A game that had so much potential and had a lot of hype built around it. Well, what happened to Evolve, guys? Let's talk about that here in this segment of the show. In an article that was written by Austin Wood of PC Gamer, the Evolve dev says 4 versus 1 caused more problems than we ever imagined. And really, guys, when you think about it, Evolve was kind of the first game that really had this mindset of like 4 versus 1. I mean, you see so many games nowadays that are doing similar concepts to what Evolve started, and it's unfortunate that the first or one of the originals, I guess you could say, of this type of genre multiplayer game ended up just ultimately failing. So, publisher 2K Games recently announced that the free-to-play version of Evolve, as well as the dedicated server supporting its ranked modes and leaderboards, will shut down this September. Obviously, guys, this was back in 2018 that this article was written, but just under 2 years after developer Turtle Rock Studios stopped working on the game. On the heels of the announcement, Evolve writer and designer Matt Colville took to Reddit to explain why he believes Evolve struggled to get off the ground and why it declined so rapidly after release. We believed we were making an alien world you were going to explore, and we intended to make it awesome, Colville said. That was the team we had. That team could have made a co-op game where 4 players explore a savage alien world, and I think it would have gone down as one of the great games of the decade, but there was no way to get that game greenlit. No one would pay us to make that game. So this is really interesting. Some of these comments were really interesting at the time, guys. Obviously, because, I mean, it's like, you know, there's no way that they could have got it greenlit. That's just really weird. I don't know why. Look, guys, we don't know all the ins and outs. We don't know there's 2 sides to every story. We don't know everything that went on behind the scenes and behind closed doors as to why, Evolve was greenlit, and then, why he's making these comments about having a co-op game where 4 players explore a savage alien world. I do agree, though, that he said that it could have been one of the great games of the decade. I believe that 100% as well. I really do. I think that this could have been a game that was very innovative and it was something different. It just, the way it was executed and things of that nature really just did not hit home for really a lot of us. In order to bring Evolve to a publisher, Turtle Rock needed a unique hook to lead with, so they hedged their bets on 4v1 multiplayer, which Colville says they 100% believed in. However, while the prototype builds of what would become Evolve's killer app performed well internally, even early on, members of the team thought it was unstable. A friend of mine said very early, and I think he was right, the reason it works is because we're all role-playing playing Evolve, Colville said. When someone on the team finally got tired of this and started playing to win, it all sort of fell apart and never really recovered. So Evolve's 4v1 mode was next to impossible to balance, Colville says, because its heroes and monsters function so differently. They operate on totally different systems, so a lot of the stuff we wanted to do had to be super watered down. Virtually every character broke all the rules, so no matter what cool idea they wanted to implement, there was always some hero or monster ability that borked your stuff. So here's the thing, guys. This really gets you to wonder, what if they ever came back to Evolve? What if they made kind of like a soft reboot of Evolve with what we know now about these types of games, like these 4v1, 3v1, whatever it might be, you're trying to escape somewhere like Dead by Daylight or some of these other games. what we know now, would Evolve succeed? Because I believe it actually would. This was a really cool idea. It was just poorly executed on multiple fronts. And it was kind of the first of its kind, so I think it's just one of those things, like, you kind of live and learn. I think if they were to maybe reboot Evolve or make a second Evolve game, I think that they might actually get it right. Unfortunately, we're probably never going to see that, but it would be something that would be cool. It didn't help that Evolve, a game that only really works if you're playing with your friends, was $60 when it launched. Getting your friends to spend a total of $240 on a game is very hard to sell. Colville said, adding that both Turtle Rock and then backer THQ considered making Evolve free to play from the beginning. Give the game away, change people for cosmetic stuff, charge people for cosmetic stuff, but make the game free. Maximize your user base, he said. We knew this and THQ knew it. Alas, THQ basically didn't listen. It didn't happen, and I think that if Evolve was, free to play, which obviously, guys, it became free to play after, basically when it was way too late at that point. I think that it should have started off as a free to play IP, and once again, it's unfortunately we're never going to know what would have happened if it did start out from the very beginning as a free-to-play game. I mean, guys, it could have been absolutely huge. I mean, really, when you think about it. The nail in the coffin was how limited Turtle Rock's options were following its release. According to Colville, the team was only able to update Evolve once every 3 months. The reasons for this are unclear, but given Colville's wording, it sounds like one of the project's backers wouldn't allow or perhaps fund rapid updates. Regardless of what led to it, this shoestring schedule severely bottlenecked the changes and fixes Turtle Rock wanted to make and indeed were ready to make, leaving the game to die on the vine. I sincerely believe there was nothing wrong with Evolve at launch we couldn't fix if we could update the game live, Colville said. We had a great launch, tons of people bought the game, tons of people were playing it, they discover exploits, and we couldn't do anything about it. As news of these exploits propagated, the user base evaporated. We had local fixes, often in 24 hours, couldn't deploy them, it cost too much, so folks who liked it couldn't get their friends to buy it, and we couldn't update the game to make the people playing it happy. So it was just a mess. I mean, if you guys remember, it was just a mess. And I think that what really needed to happen was, see, and I can speak for the players out there, which I'm sure a lot of you are, players that maybe don't necessarily always play with your friends. You just kind of like to play by yourself and kind of go at your own pace and things of that nature. Having, Evolve as a game where you could just kind of play by yourself. You could go up against bots, or you could, having story modes and all kinds of like other ways that you can connect with the universe is what a lot of us like. I mean, you guys all know this if, you know that I really like a full package deal. I love a campaign, multiplayer, some co-op modes, and like some side modes that you can, continue diving into the universe and really just getting completely lost in it. And that's what video games and the beauty of video games is. And so Evolve just kind of lacked a lot of those things. And I think that if they would have made some extra modes or kind of catered not to necessarily just all co-op, they catered to a little bit of everybody, I think they would have had a much better shot at sustaining a lot of that. But I really thought a lot of it had to do with free to play. A lot of people didn't want to pay the money. I know that I was one of those people at first as well. So Colville goes on to criticize the reporting and discussions of Evolve's pre-order bonuses and additional content, saying it didn't really have anything to do with Evolve, but was instead targeted at pre-order bonuses and DLC in general, and that Evolve was just an unlucky punching bag. As you may recall, Evolve released at a time when pre-order bonuses were treated with the heightened suspicion and disdain which loot boxes are treated with today. It also released carrying a confusing mess of pre-order bonuses and special editions with an entire monster locked behind pre-orders, so it was the subject of many debates, including one of our own. So, look, guys, this whole thing was just really unfortunate. Let's put it that way. Just a very unfortunate ordeal where, and Colville's correct, he really is. When he says that Evolve just was like the punching bag, this is really true, and it's crazy that we made such a big deal about pre-order bonuses and DLC and stuff, because had we known what that was actually leading to, we would have probably been all in on pre-order bonuses and DLC and stuff for what was coming later on, that being loot boxes and pay to win, tactics and things of that nature, which is what a lot of us just really don't like, right? So I think, guys, that a lot of this just was bad timing as well for Evolve. It was just bad timing. This was kind of like the first of its kind, and it probably shouldn't have been the first of its kind. It shouldn't have been like that first game that was a 4v1 kind of multiplayer. It should have been, that maybe later on, like after we saw some other games kind of similar to this kind of style. However, we might not have seen some of those games if Evolve was never made. So if you want to look at this in a good way, the one positive thing is that because of Evolve, it spawned all these other different types of games that we have now that are absolutely huge. Some of them, and it almost spawned like a genre in and of itself in multiplayer games, and that's absolutely amazing. And so, like I said, this is unfortunate. What happened with Evolve and what we can really grasp from it is that Evolve suffered from just bad timing and just, look, having, to pay $60 for a game. And I say this all the time, guys, that when I look to pay for a $60 property, I'll give you an example. Like later on this year, of course, there's games that are some of the games for 2020, right? You got Last of Us 2, you got like Cyberpunk 2077, Watch Dogs Legion. You've got a number of games, right? Any one of those games, though, if they only have one thing and not another thing, I will hesitate to buy it. So say, now we know that Cyberpunk, which we're going to be talking about here a little bit later, Cyberpunk, it is basically a campaign at first, but it's also going to be adding a multiplayer. So as long as I know that they're adding a multiplayer, they're going to be adding other things to the game, that gives me that confidence that, okay, maybe I'll pay the $60 for it. But most of the time, I like having those full package deals. You want to have multiple ways that you can connect with the universe and just have a really good time. You can kind of play it casually if you want. You can play it competitively if you want. Evolve lacked that, and it was like you had to have your friends, or you wanted to play with your friends. It was a great idea, a brilliant idea. It was just very poorly executed, and it's really unfortunate that it was the game that ended up having to be that kind of scapegoat in a way to the DLC, to the all of those things for back then that a lot of people just ended up disliking and ended up making Evolve and basically putting it into the ground once and for all. And I don't know, guys, if Evolve will ever be back as far as just a game in particular. I mean, I think that we might see like spiritual successors to Evolve potentially. I would love to see like an Evolve reboot, not necessarily like Evolve 2, but like an Evolve like kind of reboot, like a rebirth almost of the game, and just really give it another shot. Make it a free to play kind of, you learn from your mistakes. Let's see what you can do when what's kind of on the line of what you got to do to make it work. And that would be really interesting. But what do you guys think about Evolve? Did you guys enjoy the game? Let me know. And what do you guys think went wrong with Evolve? It's lots of things that I think that we could kind of point to, but I would love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section below. Our next topic is going to be about Cyberpunk 2077, one of my most anticipated games of the entire year, guys. I think it's really on many of our lists as a game that it's like, look, this could be absolutely huge. This could be game-changing. It could be huge. Let's put it that way. And everyone's been talking about it. We're all very excited. Now, you guys know me. We talked about it in our last segment of the show. We talked about how multiplayer and how having a full package is a really big deal, at least to myself, and I know it's a big deal to a lot of you guys out there as well. Well, Cyberpunk 2077, we're going to talk about the multiplayer of the game and how it eventually is going to come. And we're going to talk about the good things and the bad things that come with that statement. So let's talk about it. In an article from PC Gamer, once again, from Ian Bourdre, he posted an article, guys, talking about how the multiplayer will arrive only once all single-player content is done. So Cd Projekt Red, which by the way, Cd Projekt Red, guys, is becoming one of the best, game developers in the world, and I don't think there's any debate there. I mean, they are significantly trying to compete against guys of the nature of like Naughty Dog and some of these other, developers out there, and it's going to be exciting to see how this all kind of like pans out as we kind of move forward with Cyberpunk 2077 and then into maybe a Witcher 4 and other games that Cd Projekt Red is maybe thinking about working on. But Cd Projekt Red has officially confirmed that Cyberpunk 2077 will have a multiplayer component, but only once the studio has finished delivering all planned single-player content for the game. The Cyberpunk 2077 Twitter account announced confirmation this morning. So until now, from Cd Projekt Red's Twitter account, until now, the only thing we said about multiplayer was that it was in R&D. As we're getting closer to launching single-player Cyberpunk 2077 in April of 2020, we'd like to confirm that multiplayer's in the works. If you feel like lending us your skills, you can apply here. And then Cd Projekt Red included a link to its careers page in the tweet and is currently hiring for 8 multiplayer-focused jobs at its Rowclaw studio. These include a 3D character artist, design director, network programmer, senior gameplay programmer, and more. The company also provided a rough post-launch roadmap for Cyberpunk 2077. So look, right off the bat, this is really positive when you think about the simple fact that Cd Projekt Red, they're seeking people to come into work for the company from a multiplayer perspective. So, when I know a lot of people were kind of stating when they started hearing rumblings that a multiplayer was coming from Cd Projekt Red, a lot of people said there's no way, they've never worked on a multiplayer before. Like the Witcher games don't have a multiplayer. They're probably not working on a multiplayer for Cyberpunk. They're probably just doing a single player story. Maybe they're going to add, DLC and, things of that nature. However, when they, posting this shows that they're serious about the multiplayer, but they are obviously more focused on the single player than that of the multiplayer. And so to me, that you kind of wonder a few things here. Number one is that it kind of is a little bit concerning to me when you hear that obviously a developer is kind of going into uncharted territory, even though I'm very excited and I want them to do that, because I think that they could come up with something pretty creative for multiplayer, even if it was just like team deathmatch or something like that, PvP or PvE, whatever it is. But the other thing is that, when you haven't worked on a multiplayer before, it's going to take a little while to, to kind of figure those things out, I guess you could say. And the other thing is that it's not coming at launch. It's coming, later on. And so when you think on a second front, like how long are we going to have to wait for a multiplayer for Cyberpunk to come out? And so my concern with that is that is Cyberpunk 2077, the single player, is that going to keep us, kind of parch our thirst for a long enough period of time before, the multiplayer comes out? Now, I'm not saying that certainly Cyberpunk 2077 is going to probably have a ton of content single player for us to absorb and take in, and then updates and all of that is going to be coming out. But really, when you think about it, I'm saying if a multiplayer came out right when the game came out and the multiplayer was good, it's going to keep people coming back over and over and over again. Now, I know games like The Witcher, people come back to those games over and over again, which is fantastic. So Cyberpunk, I'm not expecting people to leave, but I think that it may not reach its full potential because they don't have a multiplayer at launch, which is really unfortunate to me because I think that this could be absolutely massive, guys. I mean, we're talking a massive game here. And I think it's going to be very big. I really do. There's a ton of hype around Cyberpunk, don't get me wrong, and I'm super excited about it. I just wonder about, I'm just a little bit concerned about, is it going to, somewhat have growing pains, as they kind of go through this, and are they going to lose some of the player base after some people beat the campaign, or, whatever the case might be? Are there going to be a lot of people coming back to it before the multiplayer comes out? And so there's a big question mark there. I would love to hear from you guys, though, in the comment section below. What do you guys think about that? The plan for now is to deliver Cyberpunk 2077 in April, then follow up with DLCs, which are free, which is huge, and single-player content. And once we're done, invite you for some multiplayer action, Cd Projekt Red tweeted in a follow-up. It's not any massive surprise that multiplayer will eventually arrive in Cyberpunk 2077, as Cd Projekt has been hinting at it for years. Last year, the company brought multiplayer specialist Digital Scapes on board in a long-term strategic cooperation on the game. Digital Scrapes previously worked on Dying Light's multiplayer component, Be the Zombie. So Dying Light, though, multiplayer, I mean, look, I'm not going to say Dying Light's multiplayer wasn't good. It was different, right? But I don't know. You just kind of wonder, okay, so you hear that, okay, so Digital Scapes, they worked on, Dying Light's multiplayer component. So what is, you kind of start wondering, like, you're trying to envision in your mind, okay, what is Cyberpunk 2077 going to look like if we go based on what some of these guys have worked on in the past? And, obviously we can only go based on the past, guys, as to what might happen in the future. It may be completely different, obviously, but you kind of wonder about those things. Fans have expressed concern over the potential for microtransactions in a multiplayer game, particularly after CD Projekt's CEO suggested online elements will be crucial to Cyberpunk 2077's long-term success. But the company says not to worry, going so far as to put an FAQ as background text into Cyberpunk's 2018 E3 trailer that read, "On the question of microtransactions in a single-player role-playing game, are you nuts?" Now, look, guys, we've heard this before, that there weren't going to be, microtransactions in the game, and then there ends up being microtransactions one way or another. And I've said this on many occasions, guys. I don't really have any problems with microtransactions as a whole because I never really got sucked into buying stuff as far as within the game. I like to earn things within the game. That's just kind of how I am, the kind of player I am. And I've been playing video games for a while. And so, I played in a time where there were no, microtransactions. That being said, though, I just don't want there to be microtransactions that are, deceptive to the consumer or give you a competitive advantage in multiplayer or whatever, kind of co-op modes, whatever they might add to the game. That's all I ask, is I just don't want that. I don't want there to be these pay-to-win schemes and tactics. And, obviously, if the game was free, then I would be very much more on board with the microtransactions, similar to that of like Fortnite and games like Apex Legends. But look, we all know the developers have to make money, and they're going to make a lot of money off of Cyberpunk just because it's CD Projekt Red. It's being followed up from, obviously The Witcher 3. People are wondering, is this going to be the future of CD Projekt Red as far as like, I think I'll be working on Cd Projekt Red now for the foreseeable future, especially because of the ending of The Witcher 3. Like, are they coming back to The Witcher, or are they just going to continue moving forward with Cyberpunk? It's hard to say. I think a lot of it has to do with the Cyberpunk success, obviously. But guys, there's a lot of good things here that I'm excited about with Cyberpunk because I think that this could be a very good multiplayer game. But it's very hard to say, like, how long is it going to be until we actually would see a multiplayer component to Cyberpunk 2077. I'm sure there's going to be a ton, hours upon hours upon hours to put into the game itself. And it sounds like CD Projekt Red has put everything that they could into this game. But you just got to wonder. You have to wonder, is this going to be sustainable of a massive player base up until the multiplayer comes? What if the multiplayer doesn't come 6 months, a year afterwards? It's hard to say how long it might be. Now, if we're talking a couple of months, it might not be that big of a deal whatsoever. But to bring people back into a game, guys, and have a very solid fan base, sure, you're going to have a lot of those people from The Witcher coming over to play Cyberpunk, and you might be creating your own, big fan base that just loves Cyberpunk. But at the same time, you want to start, bringing people back to the game in more ways than just one, more ways than just, single player, bringing people in from multiplayer, bringing people in from like different co-op modes. So I hope and I trust CD Projekt Red. I really do. I think that they're a fantastic company, one of the best companies in all of gaming. I'm excited to see what they have, what they're cooking up here with CD Projekt Red, and with Cyberpunk 2077. I'm excited about it, and I hope you guys all are as well. I have a lot more content that's going to be coming based around Cyberpunk 2077, so stay tuned for that, guys. But what do you guys think about this? Are you guys excited about the multiplayer and what might be coming here in the foreseeable future? Let me know what you guys think, and I will keep you guys all up to speed as more information comes out. So where is Titanfall 3, guys? A game and a franchise in which was very innovative when it, first came out with the very first Titanfall, and many games and other, shooters out there actually tried to copy some of the concepts that Titanfall had, in particular, that being Call of Duty, did exactly that, trying to kind of copy the advanced movement system and wall running and things of that nature in Titanfall. And why has Titanfall 3 been delayed at this point? Obviously, Apex Legends is a massive reason why, because of the success of Apex. But the entire world, we all thought that Titanfall 3 was actually what was being developed at the time. But then when Apex Legends came out, lots of us were very surprised to see that it was Apex Legends, it wasn't Titanfall, but it was in the same universe as Titanfall, which is very interesting. So in an article, guys, that was written by Zoe Light of Games Radar, Titanfall 3, those plans have been delayed, okay? So they're delayed, obviously, but I think that we haven't seen the last of Titanfall. I believe that Apex Legends, obviously, guys, is what Respawn Entertainment's going to be working on now for a while. But we very well might come back to the Titanfall universe. I would say I've got a lot of friends that love Titanfall, absolutely love that universe and the multiplayer and just everything about it. It's just like a really great experience from a lot of people have been telling me. Even though I've played it, but just I'm not as dedicated as some of these, some of my friends and such. But that being said, for those of you hoping to get to fight alongside one of 2016's best video game characters, the Titan BT-7274 from Titanfall 2, I have bad news. Respawn has pushed back any Titanfall-shaped plans to spend more time working on Apex Legends. As the game takes place in the same universe, the delay is probably down to the fact that the team that has all the Titanfall expertise is currently fully focused on Apex Legends, Respawn's incredibly successful Battle Royale. So, guys, Apex Legends is more successful than probably all three of the Titanfalls put together, okay? That's kind of, or I should say the first two Titanfalls, put together. So, you got to weigh those things as well. This is a business for these companies, and Apex, it's very popular, and if you love Titanfall, you should love Apex as well, because basically all the guns in Titanfall are the exact same in Apex. It's pretty cool. The news comes from executive producer Drew McCoy, who revealed the information on a blog post about Apex Legends Season 2, saying that in order to fully support Apex Legends, we are pushing out plans for future Titanfall games. Considering that 50 million people played Apex Legends within its first month, it's disappointing but not surprising that Respawn are focusing on keeping Apex Legends full of sparkling potential. McCoy goes on to clarify that no resources from the Apex Legends team are being shifted to other titles in development here at the studio, nor are we pulling resources from the team working on Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. You heard him, Apex Legends is a top priority for Respawn. Now, it's been recently confirmed that Jedi Fallen Order 2 is going to be in development, so that's kind of interesting. Maybe we'll see a Titanfall 3 then, after, Jedi Fallen Order 2. That would be quite interesting. If you're reading this as an Apex Legends fan, I have good news. In the blog post, there's some extra details about what you can expect for the second season of Apex Legends, with McCoy teasing that at EA Play in June, we will give you the first details on what you can expect from Season 2. We've seen all the feedback on Season 1 and look forward to showing you the improvements we're making. So obviously, guys, Season 2 is already, it's, been here, done that. Season 3, been here, done that. But look, all in all, Titanfall 3 is, I believe, the Titanfall franchise is in not a limbo state, because obviously Apex Legends is in the Titanfall universe and it is thriving right now, one of the biggest battle royales in the entire world. Titanfall 3 in particular, though, is in a, it's kind of awaiting opportunity to hit the shelves for all of us to play. So if you wanted to know my personal opinion on it, I believe, guys, that we will see a Titanfall 3 in the future. It may not be, I don't know if it's in the foreseeable future or not. It depends on the continued success, of course, of Apex Legends. However, Jedi Fallen Order 2 got confirmed. So you got Jedi Fallen Order 2, let's just say that comes out in 2 years. Let's say a couple years after that, maybe a year or two after that, they announced Titanfall 3, and then we would probably get it a year or two after that. So I would say, guys, that you're about maybe around 4 to 6 years away from a Titanfall 3. I don't think it's a stretch, though. And I really believe that Apex Legends is actually going to help and has been helping the Titanfall universe get bigger and bigger as far as like the Titanfall games. So the first-person shooter, Titanfall 3, could really be big and popular because of the success of Apex Legends. It just kind of comes down to, do they want to make a Titanfall 3? Or do they think that, hey, Apex Legends is basically Titanfall, it's just in a battle royale? I would personally want to see Titanfall 3 as well, because I think that it's different. I mean, it's a first-person shooter, but this is only Battle Royale with Apex Legends. We want something that, you can play other game modes and have a story mode. Like, Apex doesn't have anything like that. Apex is just a Battle Royale. Now, if they added other game modes, other maps, and they started doing those things, then I would say, okay, there's a very... I think there's a real argument to be said there for that, but... without a doubt, guys, I think that we will see Titanfall 3 at some point in the future. What do you guys think? You think you'll see? You think we'll be able to play Titanfall in the next 6 years? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Our next topic is about a game called Homefront. Some of you may, of course, have remembered about the game in the series known as Homefront, a title that had a lot of potential and kind of just fizzled out, especially with Homefront the Revolution, which really got just a ton of hate and just bad reviews and such. And I think that might have been that kind of point in which we really saw the series fizzle out in a series that really had potential, but it was kind of in a crowded space, and it was something that I felt was a little bit different, but they just didn't really maybe do the things necessary to keep the series going. So let's talk about it. Patrick Klepek of Vice, he wrote an article, and it was about the Homefront sequel didn't get many glowing reviews, but the developers have kept cranking away at the game and continuing to update it. Homefront the Revolution is a game that arrived to thoroughly mediocre reviews and unflattering technical issues that have marred impressions ever since. Sometimes mission objectives fail to load into the game entirely, wrote Waypoint's Austin Walker in a review for Giant Bomb last May. Sound drops out in the middle of a gunfight, or else an inexplicable and banging noise begins emitting from the corner of an empty room in your safe house. Unpredictable hitches in the action on both PC and PS4 are by far the most frustrating offender. Vehicles would float in the air sometimes too. Guys, let's just put it this way. There were a lot of issues. Even though I thought that there was really cool concepts in Homefront, really cool concepts, and some like interesting ideas. They weren't able to deliver what we were really hoping for. It's definitely true to say that as a team, we weren't satisfied with the game at launch, said producer David Stenton. We put years of hard work into it and felt we weren't really doing the players justice to the ambition and the hard work that we'd put in. It made us at launch more resolute to work tirelessly to improve the player experience over the next few months. These days, Stenton is a creative director at Homefront the Revolution, developer Dan Buster, formerly Crytek UK. The game's origins are back with the now defunct THQ. I found myself on Skype with Stenton because of an email that genuinely shocked me a few weeks back, which promised an update for the game with PlayStation 4 Pro support and details on the game's third downloadable add-on, Beyond the Walls. It's clear that Homefront the Revolution was not the blockbuster everyone involved was hoping for, and during such moments, it's not surprising to see companies quietly scuttle their plans for the future. That DLC we promised would be coming nearly a year later. Well, maybe it's not worth it. And yet, Dan Buster has continued to hammer away at Homefront the Revolution. It took several months of work to whip the game into technical competence. It didn't really turn a corner until September, long after most had written the game off and moved on. The game came out in May. Since then, they focused delivering what they'd promised for old players and hopefully new ones. We knuckled down, he said. It reminded me of a story I wrote for Kotaku about the 2-year journey for a developer to finish DLC for Rambo the Game, an awful on-rail shooter that was savaged by everyone, and yet the DLC eventually came out. Stenton told me the team wasn't psychologically set back by the game's reception, a claim I have trouble fully buying, but instead turned any frustrations towards a series of patches. So yeah, I feel like with any game, guys, and any game developer out there, you look at these things, and I do think that it affects game developers for sure. When they hear negative feedback and negativity around their game, that bothers you. You don't even want to come into work because it's like, man, dude, I'm going to get so much hate on Twitter. I'm going to get, why am I working on this project? I just want to move on to something new, have a fresh start kind of thing. So it is kind of hard to, it is hard to kind of believe when they say that, that people weren't really having real problems with working on the project even after all of the hate. When I first started the game, I wasn't really into it, said Reddit user Tone3000, one of the few folks I could find singing the game's praises online. Shooting fell off, stealth was terrible, and a number of other things, but as I started playing it with a different mindset, I enjoyed it more for what it is. I played it with the mindset that this is guerrilla warfare, hit and run type of tactics. I realized I am a rebel and therefore inferior to this strong government. As I play it with this in mind, I realize how great this game is. It really makes me feel like a rebel. And look, I gotta say, guys, he's right on this. Now, when you kind of play it in a different way, like I didn't fully finish the game. I actually just couldn't get through it, to be honest with you guys. So I don't think it was absolutely terrible. There's a lot of games that I am not able to fully finish because, I start kind of losing interest in the game or whatever the case might be. I did play some of the game, though. And what I'll tell you is I agree with some of what he's talking about, that guerrilla warfare, you kind of have that kind of that mindset. I think that all those things are true, but it's really the execution that just was very weak, right? It didn't hit home for me, and that was the unfortunate thing with this game. It was kind of like a lot of those other games out there, like Freedom Fighters and Army of Two, and good ideas, great ideas, but just didn't fully, hit home for me, and it's really unfortunate. It's these types of fans, a combination of diehards who've continued to quietly champion the game through its hard times and curious players attracted by the $10 price tag on places like Steam that Stenton relies on. First impressions are hard to break, and the developers who made a game that didn't work right the first time aren't exactly the people with the most legitimacy. We're so grateful for the fans that really appreciate for what it is and for the gameplay and for the things that it tries to do differently, he said. Obviously, it's an ideal situation if you can get players on board to kind of fight in your corner. So you're relying on your own hard work and DLC and patches, but you're relying on your fans and the players to help try and communicate out that a lot of these issues are resolved. It might be too late for some, but Stenton said he's encouraged by the response to the game's DLC and regular updates. The hope is that when Steam forum topics like "despite the initial bad reviews" pop up, it'll have people making the pitch. Yeah, the game is much better now than what it was on launch, wrote the first response to that topic, and the current price is more than okay for what you get. It's a step in the right direction. So, look, could we see Homefront, the Revolution, could that eventually, at some point or another, who knows, whether they make a sequel or whatever the case might be, could it be a comeback story? Kind of like, No Man's Sky and what some of these other games are trying to do, right? Could it be a comeback story? I don't think it will be, guys. I don't think, even with another Homefront game and all of that, it's hard to say. I mean, sure, it's definitely possible, but when you have other games that you can choose from, like The Division and just other games out there that are being promoted and consistently advertised by big developers and advertisers, it's hard for me to believe that this could really be a big time comeback story. It would be, I would love it. I would love if it was a comeback story and that they fixed everything and then I could go back and kind of play it all the way through and enjoy it and be excited for maybe the next iteration or the next expansion, or that be DLC or just the next thing, you know, the next game in the Homefront franchise. Because I thoroughly did enjoy the first one. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good, even though it had problems as well. And the second one was just kind of a step backwards for me. But I think ultimately what happened to Homefront, guys, was just as we kind of mentioned, there was just like a number of things that went wrong. And by the time that they finally fixed everything, it was like they had lost their entire fan base. Not really the fan base, but just the player base had just been pretty much wiped out. But that being said, guys, I would love to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about this? Are you guys still Homefront fans? Do you guys want to see the continuation of the franchise, or do you think it just needs to kind of like be what it is? And you know, every once in a while you have people that jump on the game. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And with that being said, everyone, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the 8 Below Show. And if you guys did, leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, stay positive, and as always, I'll talk to you guys all in the next one. Peace.